This is the early edition, a curated weekday guide to major news and developments over the past 24 hours, curated by Lizzie Jennings and read by an automated voice. Published March 13, 2026 on Just Security, an essential resource for those shaping a just and secure world. Here's today's news. Iran war. The U.S. military says 4 crew members were killed when a KC-135 refueling aircraft crashed in western Iraq on Thursday. In its Friday morning statement, U.S. Central Command said, the circumstances of the incident are under investigation. However, the loss of the aircraft was not due to hostile fire or friendly fire. On Friday, Turkey said NATO defenses had intercepted a third missile from Iran, Reuters reports. Israel's military said Friday it had launched a broad wave of strikes in Tehran, after hitting more than 200 targets across western and central Iran over the previous day, including what it described as ballistic missile launchers, air defense systems, and weapons production sites. Eugenia Yosef and Helen Regan report for CNN. Explosions were reported in central Tehran near one of Friday's Al-Quds Day rallies as Israel issued new evacuation warnings for parts of the capital. Thousands had marched across Iran earlier in the day to mark the annual pro-Palestinian event, with state media showing demonstrators carrying portraits of Iran's leaders. Ivana Kadasova and Mustafa Salem report for CNN. Adam Poramati and Ivana Kadasova report for CNN. Helen Regan reports for CNN. A missile strike caused heavy damage to a residential compound in the northern Israeli town of Zarzir early Friday, wounding at least 2 people. Lauren Izzo and Helen Regan report for CNN. In his first message since becoming Iran's new supreme leader after his father's death, Mojtaba Khamenei vowed on Thursday to keep blocking the Strait of Hormuz and to avenge the blood of the martyrs. His message was read out on state TV. He said Iran will continue to attack Gulf countries that host U.S. military bases. I recommend that they close those bases as soon as possible, he said in his statement. Patrick Wintour reports for The Guardian. The Trump administration denounced CNN for airing a portion of his message. It was the second time in 3 days that the administration has publicly targeted the network for reporting on the Iranian government's response to the war. David Bowder reports for AP. U.S. officials say Iran has begun laying mines in the Strait of Hormuz. Using small boats for the effort, Iranians appear to be hoping that they can lay them faster than the United States can clear them, and therefore create a further deterrent for ships to move per the strait. Julian E. Barnes reports for The New York Times. The Trump administration has already burned through what officials described as years' worth of some key munitions since the Iran war began, including heavy use of long-range Tomahawk missiles, the Financial Times reported, citing 3 sources. One source called it a massive expenditure of Tomahawks that the Navy will feel for several years. Abigail Hauslauner, Steph Chavez, Lauren Fetter, and James Politi report. To address the disruptions to shipping caused by the war, the White House said Thursday it was considering waiving the Jones Act, which would allow foreign-flagged ships to deliver oil and gas between U.S. ports. Experts said temporarily lifting Jones Act restrictions could bring down U.S. gas prices slightly, but ultimately would be unable to alter underlying market fundamentals. Rachel Lerman and Evan Helper report for The Washington Post. On Thursday, the Trump administration lifted sanctions on Russian oil already at sea in an effort to contain energy prices. The exemptions are temporary and will be in place until April 11th. Alan Rappaport reports for The New York Times. Russia is already benefiting from the war in Iran, bringing in $150 million a day in extra revenue from surging oil prices. The Financial Times reports. From Kansas to India, the economic fallout from the war in Iran is spreading across the globe. Cargo deliveries have been stranded, shipping charges have increased, and insurance premiums have skyrocketed. Yes, the price of gas at the pump is affected. But so is the price of food, medicine, airplane tickets, electricity, cooking oil, semiconductors, and more. Patricia Cohen reports for The New York Times. Israeli officials assess the Iranian regime is not likely to fall soon, and that conditions on the ground aren't yet ripe for a popular uprising. They believe it would take many more weeks or months of fighting to change the situation. Anat Peled, Dov Lieber, Margarita Stenkati, report for the Wall Street Journal. Meanwhile, Trump told G7 leaders in a virtual meeting Wednesday that Iran is about to surrender. Barak Ravid reports for Axios. The Trump administration failed to fully anticipate that Iran might try to close the Strait of Hormuz in response to U.S. strikes, sources told CNN. The same sources said Trump's preference to rely on a small circle of advisors had sidelined the interagency analysis and debate that would have been central in past administrations. Zachary Cohen, Phil Mattingly, Kevin Liptak, and Kylie Atwood report. The Iranian girls' school the United States bombed on February 28 had a years-long online presence, a Reuters investigation found. Journalists discovered online photos of children in class and at play, and satellite images that show colored walls and playground markings. The school's online activity calls into question how the American military vets and reviews strike locations. James Pearson and Ryan McNeil report. Inside the White House, aides are competing to shape how President Trump defines and exits the Iran war, with economic and political advisors urging him to frame the operation as limited and nearly complete, while hawks push for sustained pressure on Tehran. Figures such as Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican South Carolina, Senator Tom Cotton, Republican Arkansas, Mark Levin, Steve Bannon, and Tucker Carlson are pulling Trump in opposite directions over whether to escalate or wind down the conflict. Vice President J.D. Vance is trying to distance himself from Trump's decision to go to war with Iran. Two Trump officials told Politico that the vice president made his opposition known in the lead-up to the war, and is now worried about success. Diana Nerozzi and Eli Stokols report. Lebanon. Israel expanded its bombing campaign in Lebanon on Thursday, issuing sweeping warnings as it pounded Beirut and the country's southern borderlands. Lebanon's government, trying to stave off a disaster that threatens to overwhelm it, has appealed to U.S. and European leaders to intervene. Mohammed El-Shama, Suzanne Heidemus, and Ellen Francis report for The Washington Post. On Friday, an Israeli military spokesman confirmed that Israel had struck in the vicinity of the campus of the Lebanese University in Beirut on Thursday. Lebanon's state news agency said 2 academics had been killed in the strike. Jonathan Rees reports for The New York Times. The British government warned its citizens to leave Lebanon on Thursday unless their presence in the country was essential. If people decide to stay, we cannot guarantee we will be able to help you, the bulletin said. Lizzie Dearden reports for The New York Times. Other global developments. Trump has advised Maria Corina Machado, the Venezuelan opposition leader, not to return home. Trump told her the situation in the country is volatile and that he has concerns for her safety. But the focus on maintaining continuity in the Venezuelan government has put the White House increasingly at odds with Machado. Anatoly Kurmanev and Tyler Pager report for The New York Times. A roughly $14 billion U.S. arms package for Taiwan, including advanced interceptor missiles, is ready for President Trump's approval and could be announced after his planned trip to Beijing later this month. The package would be the largest ever for Taiwan and suggests the administration intends to sustain or even expand military support for Taipei, despite concerns that Trump might scale it back while pursuing a trade deal with China. Serbia has acquired Chinese CM-400 AKG air-to-surface ballistic missiles for its air force after images of the weapons mounted on a Serbian aircraft leaked online, Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić acknowledged Thursday. The disclosure makes Serbia the missile's first known European operator, and Vučić said the Serbian Air Force modified its Soviet-made MiG-29 jets to carry them. U.S. Department of Defense. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has ordered a review of the legal shops across the military services. He announced the review in a video, saying it would be a ruthless, no-excuses review, with the aim of refocusing Judge Advocate Generals, JAGs, on providing legal advice to commanders so that JAGs can avoid getting stuck on civilian side work that belongs to general counsels instead. Members of the military's legal community are skeptical of Hegseth's message and its timing. Thomas Novelli reports for Defense One. Hegseth also announced the formation of a new task force on Thursday to review U.S. war colleges. Professional military education should produce warfighters and leaders, not wokesters, he said. The Pentagon says a box on the Washington Post's website that appeals for tips about the U.S. military crosses a line into the sort of solicitation that is not protected by the First Amendment, and that could prompt punishment under the new restrictions. A similar request from right-wing influencer Laura Loomer, however, did not prompt similar concerns. Eric Wemple reports for the New York Times. U.S. domestic developments. A driver rammed his truck into Temple Israel, a synagogue outside Detroit, Michigan, on Thursday. Federal officials identified the suspect, who died during the attack, as Ayman Mohammed Ghazali, a naturalized U.S. citizen from Lebanon. He lost several family members, including 2 brothers and a niece and nephew, during an Israeli strike in Lebanon last week, according to a local Lebanese official and a mayor in Michigan. The brothers were known to be members of Hezbollah, the Lebanese official told NBC. None of the synagogue's teachers and students were hurt. Raf Sanchez, Mustafa Qasim, and Mo Abbas report for NBC News. The assault comes as instances of anti-Semitism are on the rise. Ruth Graham and Campbell Robertson report for the New York Times. The shooter who opened fire at Old Dominion University in Virginia on Thursday was previously convicted of providing material support to ISIS. The man, Mohammed Baylor Jallo, allegedly targeted a ROTC class and was a former member of the Army National Guard. He was killed during Thursday's shooting. Ryan J. Riley, Gary Grumbach, and Tim Stello report for NBC News. On Thursday, Senate Democrats blocked a House-passed bill to reopen the Department of Homeland Security, DHS. Senator John Fetterman was the only Democrat to vote with Republicans to advance the funding bill. Democrats voted against the bill because it provides funding for Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Customs and Border Protection, 2 agencies they want to reform. The DHS shutdown has been going on for 27 days. Alexander Bolton reports for The Hill. Trump nominated a senior State Department official for the top post at the U.S. Agency for Global Media, which oversees the Voice of America, after a federal judge ruled that Kari Lake's leadership violated federal law. Abigail Williams reports for NBC News. Thank you for listening to Just Security's early edition today, March 13, 2026. If you enjoy listening, Just Security's analytic articles are also available in audio form on the justsecurity.org website. To stay up to date on Just Security's analysis of law, policy, and current events, go to justsecurity.org, subscribe to Just Security on Substack, and follow us on LinkedIn, Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads.